We want the nation to know
You
that
think
we
you're cute,
officially place
YouTube?
any and all
You think you're cute?
unlawfulness on notice.
I see you.
Is waving flag. It's peaceful. There's never been an issue, no problems, and no burning, no looting, no fighting, because we're here for the future of America. That's why we bring our kids to the Trump movement.
We invite every American to join us in this peaceful and patriotic movement by hosting or creating your own Trump parade by air, land, or sea. Reach out to everyone with a warm smile and an open heart and become part of this movement.
I have my First Amendment rights to choose who I want to support, and guess what? That's why I live in America. I will not stand down. I want President Trump to be elected because he is here for freedom and the right for everybody to have their voice heard.
Let the message be clear. We are all Americans and pledge to honor one nation under God, become indivisible with proud liberty, seeking justice for all.
I am going to give gifts away for the people who clap the loudest. Take good care of it. First of all, let's thank Katja, Alex, and Tom for putting these things together. I'm honored to be here. You know, I wanted to start out and just tell you why I love America. You know, I've got a lot of things from my father. I didn't realize all the things I learned from him until he passed. But a lot of things happened when he died this past July. But really, as you go back in retrospect, the things you learn from your parents, and that's, I think, that's one of the problems with these groups, Antifa. You know, they don't have good parenting.
Nope.
That, you know, dealing, whatever going
Nope.
on, but it all starts with family.
That's
And that's why I'm going to talk about my upbringing first, and then I'll get into the movement. You know, we immigrated here in 1969. We came over here. I was only 2.5 years old. I remember that day like it was yesterday, because one of the first lessons I learned from my father when I was only 2.5 years old, but I still remember. I remember getting in a cab, and you know, it was the first time I saw snow. We came over here in December, and I got into, you know, it was like I hadn't seen my dad because he came over 3-4 months before I did. My mom and me and my other sibling came afterwards. We got into a cab. Remember, in New Jersey, it was actually New York, but we got into this cab, and it was all those big old Ford doors. And
Yeah, I know, Tony.
We're all packed in the car, like 7 of us in there. So of course we didn't want to pay for 2 cabs. And my Aunt Zoila, she, you know, there was no seatbelts back then. She put me right next to the door. And, you know, I'm sitting there looking out the window, looking at all the snow. And I'm like just amazed. And they had me in this big jacket. I looked like a puffball. And, you know, I'm sitting there, you know, they're all talking, happy to see us. And I see this little shiny thing right there. And I'm like, and we're driving. And I decided to,
Oh, no.
for some reason I grabbed the shiny thing and I opened the door. And I roll out onto the traffic. And I just remember bowling around like a little, that was, if you think I'm fat now, I was fatter then. All right, so, but what happened is, that cab came to a screeching halt, everybody was screaming. My father came out and was screaming at the top of his lungs. Not only at my aunt for letting me sit next to the door, but he jumped out in New York traffic and he scooped me up. So that was one of the first things I remember, is always protect your family at all costs. So that's really the number one lesson I remember, and it's still at 2.5 years old, and I remember that like it happened yesterday. When we immigrated here, my father had $85 in his pocket. You know, he tells a story, but you know, back then it sounds terrible, but that was a week's worth of wages back then in '69. You know, we lived in an apartment in New Jersey. Small apartment. I mean, we had a lot of good times and a lot of bad times. You know, you can imagine 1969, racism was pretty bad. We were Spanish and dark, and we got beat up a lot. which was fine. That's the way it goes. I don't, and that brings me to think, there's the video that you saw yesterday from Terrence Williams where he says, I don't know you, I don't know you. Well, guess what? My dad said that too. He goes, nobody owes you nothing. You better protect yourself. You better stand. You better work for everything you have. So, even though we lived in this area, we had, like I said, good times and bad times. But I'm gonna, one time I remember, there was a playground right next to the apartment about a block away, and it had these cement slides and all these cement things that we'd climb on, and it was our playground. And one day, I brought home as many as I could carry. Somebody put flowers all over the place. So I was only 4 years old, so I carried as many flowers as I could. And I'm carrying them up to the apartment, carrying them up to my mom. And my dad was there. And she was like, Florida's got eagles. And I'm like, can I get a quarter? And, my mom was all happy. And my dad's like, he was always like the strict one. He goes, where'd you get those flowers? And I said, I got them at the playground. And he goes, show me. So we went over to the corner of the apartment, and I go, right over there. And he goes, that's a cemetery. That's like,
oh.
And I'm like,
Oh.
it's my playground. I've been sliding on those tubes all day long for months.
Oh.
As much as he laughed, my mom was laughing. He was like, he wanted to be mad, but he explained to me that people had died there in the cemetery, and those were for loved ones, and they were not mine. So he made me return them all. I think I kept one from my mom, but he made me return them all, and that I still remember that. He explained to me as we walked back to that cemetery, don't ever steal. If it ain't yours, don't take it.
That's right.
So, then, I guess it was 1971, we had moved to Virginia to start a new chapter. I think immigration was looking for us, to be honest. So we moved to Virginia, where my dad became, he was a laborer. He was swinging a hammer. He'd take me to work over in Southeast DC. If you're familiar with DC, it's probably the roughest neighborhood. But we'd go there, and I'd go to work with him because there was no child care back then. So he'd be making boxes. Like so, if you were shipping furniture, he'd make a box for it for the container so it wouldn't get damaged. Well, I'd watch him all day swing the hammer calluses, and I would help him sweeping up the nails that would go flying. And that after all summer being out there in the hot sun in DC, I'd work. He's telling me how this is how work is done, and I learned that work lasted a long day. And you had to work hard. But what even really more impressed me was he came home one day with a U.S. postal truck. I'm like, how are we going to start delivering mail? And he bought it as used. And I said, yeah, what is he doing? So now he works, we'd go work all day, and then he'd come back and he'd start taking a jigsaw, cutting holes in the side of the truck. And then we drove up to New Jersey or New York, one of the places, but they had that restaurant district. And we ended up buying stainless steel equipment, coffee machines, steamers, and I'm like, I still didn't know what was going on, but I was his little sidekick. So I went with him, and next thing I know, every single day after work, after he'd get off at 5 or 6, he was out there until 10 o'clock at night. We'd be soldering lines, drilling holes. We'd put a water tank on top of this truck and secure it, and put the coffee machines in there, run lines. And he was manufacturing something, and then I soon found out after it was all done, he was manufacturing a vending truck. So now he was going to become a vendor, living the American dream. And not all dreams are rags to riches, okay? I never knew we were broke. I really, really didn't. We always had food on the table. We always had, fun parties at the house. My mom was cooking it up. So, it wasn't too much longer we had that truck ready to go. And I remember rolling down into DC, Washington, DC. I lived there for 42 years. And we rolled down with this truck that we just made, and me, my mom, and my dad. And we pulled up in front of the National art gallery. And I mean, it was crowded. I mean, people were lined around that building. If you've ever been there, it's a big building, took up the whole square block. And we pulled up, my dad opened it up, and he started selling coffee and hot chocolate. And remember, the wage back then was probably about $150 a week, you know, 3 years later. And there was an exhibit going on that just attracted people from all over. And you may have remember, it was that King Tut. Okay? King Tut. People lined around that building, and we had 20 to 30 people deep for hours. And we sold 1,100 cups of coffee that day. Right? And that, I'm telling you, that was a windfall of money. At 50 cents a piece, you're talking $550. My dad, I mean, I could see the smile on his face. He was overjoyed. So, what happened around 3 o'clock, we ran out of water. That tank up top of that truck was done. So, I'm like, I get to go home, play with the games, get to ride the bike. And there's another valuable lesson. I learned a lot of lessons. I had a strong hand, too.
I'm nervous, too, baby.
So, you know, I thought we were going home, but he's taking out the map. Those ADC maps, now we just, you know, put it in there, closest gas station, boom, Siri, Texas. But we found a gas station close by, and we pulled in there, and I thought we were getting fuel, but he's like, get out the hose, son. And I'm like carrying the hose over, and he throws me up on top of the truck, and he then hands me the hose, and we're filling up that tank again. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm holding it in there, filling it all up, you know, waiting, you know, as soon as it gets filled, what do you think we did? We drove back to that place. Yeah. And my father sold another 600 cups of coffee. He worked till dark. We made almost $900 that day. When you make when you're making $150 a week, that was a windfall of money. What I learned from my father that day is to be an entrepreneur. I learned that lesson clearly that day. I remember when my father passed in July. He didn't die of COVID, but he had all kinds of issues. My wife, which is somewhere out there, my beautiful bride, there she is. We've been married 25 years, and she taught me a great lesson. You know, she talked about if you make a difference in one person's life, you've lived a successful life. Just one change somebody's life. Well, I really never knew the domino effect my father had, because he changed, you know, my life and my brothers and sisters because of the lessons he taught us. You know, don't steal. You know, work hard, be an entrepreneur, protect your family. Those things are ingrained in me. And never stand down if it's something you believe in. You know, she explained to me about making that difference, and I started thinking about my dad's life. I said, you know, he was a trailblazer. He came over here, left his 14 brothers and sisters. Obviously, they didn't have TV in Peru. He had 14 brothers and sisters, right? So somebody gets a hat. They laughed at my stupid joke. All right, so he left. He was the oldest of 14. He left his whole family there to give us a better life, and he made a big difference in our life. I've been fortunate. I feel like because he came over here for the American dream, he gave me the ability to have the American dream. I've been fortunate, blessed by God. I started a business. I retired 6 years ago and never worked again. And from being a street vendor in DC for 11 years to selling my company to Goldman Sachs, a private equity firm, I am grateful. I'm eternally grateful for this country, for the opportunities that it allowed us to have. So when I see things that I see like these Antifa groups and all this terrorism, it just drives me crazy. When the left attacks people anybody that has a different thought, you know, it makes me really upset. I'm fortunate that I didn't have a job, and that's what I'm going to explain to you about how I started this Trump movement.
Next time, 8-bit.
The voting movement. I lived in a neighborhood.
If we still have a country next
for the
year.
last 9 years, and Loved it. I mean, it was a beautiful neighborhood. Admiral's Cove, some of you may have heard of it. I have some of my neighbors here. Beautiful spot. I lived on the water there. And got along with everybody up until I got sick with COVID. I got very sick. I came back from Aspen. I take my family skiing out there, and we contracted the disease from some Australians that we were just at the same Little Nels with. And then we saw it on TV, and we're like, oh my God, we were just there. You think we got it? And we're like, and I always joke with my wife, I'm like, I'm a Spartan soldier, I ain't getting that. Ain't getting, those diseases are scared of me. Well, little did I know, 3 days later, we ended up, they were closed the mountain, so we flew out early. My wife, boom, as soon as she lands in Florida, she was sick. I mean, she was down for the count. 5 days, but she never got a fever. My kids were sick as well. I never got a fever. Now, back then, in early March, wasn't everybody, 10% of people were dying. Well, as some of you saw those videos, I had fever for 14 days, day and night. I mean, it was very rough for me. Plus, I thought I was going to die, but everybody around me got better. And I was the only one in my neighborhood that had gotten it. So I even sent a letter to everybody, letting them know. That way they would not, because everybody was freaking out, like, has he been in the club? Has he been in the restaurant? Jesus. So I let them at ease that I just landed at midnight and I haven't left my house, so don't worry. But I thought I was going to die. I went to the hospital, and it was unbelievable. They first of all, I had to go to, the ambulance came because I was having chest pain, and I sat in the cul-de-sac in a chair while they all suited up with the hazmat team to get me in the ambulance. And my wife's crying because you heard all the stories, they're going to die in the hospital without seeing your family. That's what the norm was. So I was pretty scared myself. We get there, and the hospital was great, but they were taking, to get a ginger ale, it would take me an hour and a half because they'd have to suit up to bring me the ginger ale. And then the infectious disease doctor said, there's really nothing there's nothing I can do for you. I'm like, there's nothing you can do for me. I'm like, what about that hydroxychloroquine and the Z-Pack and the zinc? And he's like, well, I can give it, I can't give it to you. That's what he said. I go, what do you mean you can't give it to you? You have to be on a respirator. And I'm like, so if I had cancer on my finger, I gotta wait till it spreads all over before you treat it? He goes, I don't agree with it. And now I'm really getting mad. My wife's calling me at the same time crying, please come home. If they're not gonna give you anything, come home. So after 6 hours of sitting in that room looking like a petri dish, I decided to check myself out, and I was joking about with somebody earlier. I got out of that hospital faster than I ever been out of the hospital. I got out of there in 1 minute. I called my son. I said, bring that car around to the emergency room. And they were all outside this glass door, and I just started popping all up. And the worst part was pulling this thing out. I started bleeding. And I opened the door, and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm leaving. And he goes, where are you going? I go, I'm going to die at home. I'm not going to die here. And I was like, that's right. And I started walking for him, and he goes, the door's that way. Why am I that way? So I jumped in the car, and God bless my wife. She's a trooper. She's a soldier. I wouldn't be here today because she not only, I got home at 6 o'clock, and I was sleeping 18 hours a day. The people who know me know I only sleep 4 hours a day. So for me to sleep 18 hours ever is bad. So I went home and I immediately fell asleep at 6 o'clock. And I said, this is what I need. I need to find this hydroxychloroquine. Wherever we got to get it, we got to get it. So the doctor gave me his cell phone and he says, if you find it, I'll treat you. Over the cell phone. I said, all right, cool. He goes, for some reason, I think you're going to find it. I'm going to go, oh, yeah, they're running around. So, but it wasn't me that found it. My wife called, I wake up at 11. She goes, I'm going to wake you up at 9, but I want you to so asleep. I said, I found it. I go, where is it? And she's like, it's in Canton, Georgia. And I live in Jupiter, Florida. I'm like, ooh, that's a little far. So thank you, honey. So she said, they're going to Federal Express it. She's going to Federal Express it to you on Monday, so it'll be here Tuesday. So it's Saturday night, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, they're closing everything. What if FedEx doesn't show up? What if it gets lost? So I wake up at 5 in the morning, and I'm like, I gotta do something. I call my pilot, and thank God I had my own plane. I go, listen guys, I need you to go right now to Jan, Georgia, and get me this medication. That guy had that bird up in the air at 7 a.m. He flew there, had the medicine back to me by 1.
Woo!
exactly his concoction. That doctor gave me he texted me the whole protocol, exactly how to take the hydroxychloroquine with the zinc and the zinc and the Zithromax. Yeah. See, I'm a little nervous. He also gave me magnesium. I was going to ask those doctors here earlier. He gave me magnesium because I have a heart issue. So he gave me that magnesium to keep me calm. And guess what? And my grandmother's been taking it for 10 years, and she's doing great. So I got better. 3 days. Woo! Better. The fever broke. I mean, I really felt much better. So now I go out. I'm going to wrap it up here. And I went out and I felt great. I lost 29 pounds in 10 days. Don't worry, I gained. I found 35 of it. Don't you worry about it. So I decided, I said, you know, the test said you've been indoors for 14 days, go out. Doctor said, go out and get sun. So we took the boat down, and you saw it was a white boat. And, you know, thank God I put the Trump's flag up, my American flag up. My son drove the boat, we went out there and anchored for about, I don't know, an hour with the dogs, and it was great. But I got really tired really fast. So I'm like, let's go back home. So we drove back, put it away. And usually, you know, if you're a boater, you wash it down, you put the covers on. Well, I was so exhausted, I just put the electricity on and walked into the house and slept, of course. Well, of those 3 days, I got 30 complaints. They kept calling, beating my phone down. You know, the police in Adams Cove called, and I said, Jay, what are you going to arrest me? And he goes, no, they just keep calling every hour to take that flag down. They're offended. It's hurting their feelings. And I'm like, really?
Fuck them.
So finally on the third day, I walked out there, and I even videotaped it. I took the flag down, and there were some people over there. So I'm the kind of guy that don't stand down. So what did I do? I was so pissed. I'm like, can you believe that? You know, I went inside. I said, I'm going to name that. I'm going to call the Coast Guard and rename my boat. So I did the paperwork, paid extra money to get it named Trump. And when you document a boat, when you actually document a boat, you have to put the name on the back and or the side or both. Yeah. So I didn't want to break the law.
Woo! This guy's hella funny.
I got through within 3 days, and I sent the boat immediately to get the artwork done. I already had the eagle. You might have seen it. The president tweeted it with the national anthem. That's when I came in for the first day in my national anthem, and I spun it around, and the neighbors went, but it's like. So they really did go berserk. I started getting hate mail. I mean, I got some hate mail from some of the people that were saying, we don't want brown people in this neighborhood.
What?
Country, Mr. Brownie. And I mean, that made me go livid. Because I thought that was way behind me in the 70s. So I said, you know something?
I wouldn't have it.
I'm going to put a parade together. So I didn't know it was going to be that big. Well, I put this parade together on May 3rd. It was 9 days. It took me to gather 1,538 votes. Woo! It was just a sight of patriotism.
Exactly, Moon.
We crowded that inlet. It was supposed to start at 12 o'clock. And it started at 11:30 because we couldn't get any more votes in the inlet. It was unreal. Then obviously one led to the other. I was with Pam Bondi and Hogan Gidley when we broke the world record at the Guinness up in Tampa. I've gone to New York to Montauk to be with Don Jr. and Kimberly. They asked me to do a parade up there in 5 days.
Hell yeah,
Nikki. A lot
Nikki.
of time, but we pulled it off, and it was awesome to do it over there in Montauk. I've been South Carolina, Charleston. I've been to a lot of different places. And I've actually had friends, from college that I've set up around the country to do, they're like, Carlos, is that you on TV? I go, yeah, you can do it too. Let me send you how to do it. And it's grown, and I am so proud to be a part of it because it's the little thing, it's something small I can do, something I enjoy, and it's helping the president, somebody who I believe in is here for the people, 100% for the people.
Woo!
I don't know if you've heard of Emilio Zapata, Z-A-P-A-T-A. He had a saying, I don't know if you've heard this, and I really stand by this. I say it in some of my posts. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Woo!
Once they started bothering my wife, that's when I said, we're retired, we can live anywhere. So we put our house up for sale, we sold it, and I put it up for sale, like 2 or 3 years ago, just to see if we'd sell it, because the house was so big and the kids were gone. Not one offer in 8 months. I put it up for sale, and I got 5 offers. And this is a God thing, because if God wanted me to move, He's going to make it happen. And we said, let's put it up for sale. If you want to be out of this neighborhood, let's go. And 5 offers in 3 weeks, $6 million cash, no inspection. It was unbelievable. It was awesome. So that was God telling me it's time to move on to the next chapter. So that's where we are today. I'm proud to be an American here. I'm proud to be part of the Republican campaign, and everybody should stand their ground, especially to these left attacks.
Damn straight. That's 5%. That's 5% right there. That's a 5%er, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it looks like. That's how you do it.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's the best table.
That's our boat parade. I do have one. I have a boat parade going in Miami. In Miami, I got one on October 15th. I've got Eric Trump, Laura Trump, the they're all going to be there. And then we're going to do another one in Jupiter on the 17th, the same guest list. Yes. Excuse me. Right now, we hold the record, and it's in Tampa. But I don't know, there's a lot of people that say there might be other people that have more votes, but it's to do the world record. You got to register each vote. Yeah. And I was too lazy to do that, so there's people up there, they registered each vote. They have to have a starting point and camera.
You heard about get on the train? Get on the boat. You could get on the boat too.
Other people said that I've got 10,000 votes, but unless you register every vote, unless you do it from beginning to end, it doesn't count. But the world record before was 1180 at Malaysia. Yeah. But 1180, I beat that in Jupiter. And how do I know I had 1,538 votes? Because I have a photographer in the air, vote pics. He photographed every vote. So he had, because he tries to sell them photos. So he goes, you had 1,538 votes because I sent emails to all of them and sent them pictures to buy. So that doesn't even count that first parade because I didn't register and I didn't pay the fees to that one.
So the record numerically, the record now is
1,900. Even though we had 1,000 votes, but only 1,900 registered. Okay, but that still beat the 1180.
How about the Tampa, the Clearwater?
That was the Tampa. We had up to 4,000 votes, but only 1,900 people paid the $10 to register. But again, you understand that still beat the record. Yes. I'm still in Jupiter, but we're after on November 4th. My wife and I are taking an 18-month world vacation. Yeah. I thought I was retired with a full-time job doing this boat stuff. It really is. So yeah, we're going to go.
Hell yeah.
2 weeks to 3 to a month in each country on our bucket list while our kids are in college.
Thank you so much. I'm in a similar situation. We're a retired military couple. We left California. We've been 5 years.
Thank God we left him.
Woo!
I love Jupiter. I really do. I'll be going back to Jupiter more likely. But there's, you have to be in a gay community. I mean, there's a lot of patriots there. I mean, when you go, and I took Tim Oons from the White House came down. a couple months ago before they could do any rallies, and they were, getting really involved with me and what I was doing. He was going down. He was like, "Oh my God, there's a Trump flag on every pier." I mean, the patriotism came out.
That's right.
Thousands over there. It really did. He said this is like the most patriotic city in Florida. It was just packed.
This is MAGA country, baby.
Check out Jupiter.